Rex begins the day by searching this ancient lake for any sign of movement or danger. Ironback relies on strength and patience, guarding the lake's edge with a living shield of bone and armor.
Three-horn protects the safest drinking spot, turning horns and frill into a powerful warning for any threat. Fireclaw studies each tiny movement, ready to sprint in any direction faster than many rivals can react.
Bladetail uses tall plates to absorb the morning heat, while Spiketail waits as a final defense.
Skywing is the lookout of the skies, spotting food and danger long before the ground can feel it.
Longneck shapes the forest with every bite, opening sunlight for smaller plants and animals below.
Rex explores the forest edge to learn which paths offer the best hunting grounds.
Ironback's armor does not fear branches or sharp rocks, turning every forest walk into a quiet patrol. Three-horn tests each new feeding spot carefully, watching for predators even while enjoying forest plants. Fireclaw uses height and silence together, turning every root and branch into a perfect vantage point. Bladetail prefers open edges of the forest where sunlight and safety can meet.
Skywing can trace every bend of the stream from the air, guiding flights to food and safe landing spots.
Ironback prefers to face thick forest from secure high ground where surprise attacks become harder to attempt.
Three-horn listens to the forest as carefully as any hunter, ready to defend the herd from all directions. Fireclaw respects larger dinosaurs, yet always calculates paths around them for faster escapes. Bladetail's slow, steady movements keep the forest floor calm, even when tension rises above.
Skywing uses these cliffside perches to signal changes across the valley to any dinosaur that listens.
Longneck's careful footing keeps such a giant body stable even on steep hillsides.
Rex marks this lower valley as part of Rex's hunting territory.
Ironback understands this valley floor offers both food and open sightlines against danger.
Fireclaw uses color and stillness to disappear even in open ground.
Bladetail prefers strong trees nearby, using trunks as shields whenever danger approaches.
Skywing senses a storm forming far beyond the valley, long before the ground can feel it.
Longneck detects the coming change in weather and prepares for a long walk to shelter.
Rex knows storms can hide sound and scent, making both hunting and safety more difficult. Ironback's instinct drives Ironback toward trees and firm shelter before heavy rain arrives.
Three-horn follows familiar routes toward safety, trusting memory more than sight in worsening weather.
Fireclaw uses speed to reach shelter quickly and then waits, perfectly still, until danger passes. Bladetail becomes a living roof as the first rain touches the forest.
Skywing must choose between climbing above the storm or riding the winds back to safer cliffs.
Longneck's enormous strength carries Longneck through long storms that could stall smaller dinosaurs. Rex chooses the forest edge to stay close to shelter and still watch for movement in the open. Ironback moves like a slow river of bone, reshaping the muddy forest floor.
Three-horn rides out the storm carefully, keeping horns ready in case any predator tries to use the weather as cover.
Fireclaw chooses height to stay dry and to watch shifting shadows created by every flash.
Bladetail saves energy during storms, waiting for clear weather before moving long distances again.
Skywing must constantly adapt flight paths to survive sudden changes in ancient skies. Longneck joins the others in the sheltering forest as thunder rolls farther away.
Rex uses the storm's aftermath to read the forest like a story written in scent.
Narrator says Ironback takes advantage of rain-softened ground to uncover new food sources.
Three-horn tolerates the mess, because pools like this often hide fresh plants beneath the surface.
Fireclaw's light frame and strong legs allow agile movement even when the ground becomes a slippery maze.
A Bladetail cools body temperature in the water while still keeping weapons ready.
Skywing surveys the refreshed valley, looking for both opportunities and lingering dangers.
Rex understands when a battle would waste energy and better saved for easier prey.
Ironback squeezes through narrow spaces that many predators avoid, reaching hidden pockets of vegetation.
Three-horn senses that the forest has shifted from tense silence back to ordinary life.
Even a fast-moving hunter like Fireclaw takes short rests to regain speed for the next chase.
Bladetail returns to feeding confidently, now that immediate danger has passed.
Skywing enjoys calmer air after the storm, using the moment to patrol without strain. Longneck's travels extend far beyond one valley, connecting distant feeding grounds across the land. Rex weighs the safety of familiar territory against the promise of new hunting grounds.
Ironback follows cycles of grass growth, always returning when new plants emerge after storms. Three-horn shapes pathways other dinosaurs can later use across thick fields.
Fireclaw follows tiny signs many larger dinosaurs would never notice.
Bladetail unintentionally creates landmarks, becoming part of the valley's skyline.
Skywing's perspective ties this ancient ecosystem together, revealing how every movement connects.
Fireclaw reads the plains like an open book, where every bent stem or loose grain of dirt reveals the presence of hidden life.
Rex enters the plains with confidence, for open land offers long sightlines and fewer surprises than the forest.
Ironback endures long journeys thanks to unmatched endurance and a steady pace that few predators dare interrupt.
Three-horn relies on these rich meadows for constant food, supporting the heavy muscles needed for powerful defense. Bladetail favors high ground to stay aware of movement across both fields and forests.
Skywing communicates across great distances, passing warnings between ground and sky.
Longneck shapes every landscape visited, opening paths and flattening old ground with each giant step.
Rex recognizes the scents of familiar herbivores and weighs whether any are worth pursuit.
Fireclaw's hunts are swift and agile, though not always successful.
Ironback unintentionally clears predators from its path simply by existing.
Three-horn masters the art of nonverbal communication, signaling intentions through posture alone. Skywing often acts as an early scout whenever different species draw near.
Bladetail is slow to provoke and slow to retreat, offering predictable behavior that benefits every creature nearby.
Longneck's sheer size grants unhindered access to resources smaller dinosaurs must share cautiously.
Rex chooses wisely when conserving strength for more achievable hunts. Fireclaw reads footprints like written messages left in the mud.
Ironback respects wet terrain and rarely risks deep mud, where heavy armor become a danger.
Three Horn's powerful head shape allows passage through landscapes that block many other herbivores.
Bladetail chooses lower ground as the day cools, conserving warmth gathered earlier.
Skywing rests briefly before nightfall, when winds calm and shadows stretch across the plains. Skywing watches the changing light carefully, because night brings new dangers and new opportunities.
Rex knows that many herbivores become slower at night, and Rex considers how to use that to advantage.
Fireclaw senses giant movement through the ground before any sound reaches the ears. Narrator: Ironback checks for hidden pits before the night can hide those dangers completely. Three-Horn prefers to face open darkness from higher ground, where approaching threats are easier to see. Bladetail searches for firm, sheltered rock where night resting will be safer.
Skywing becomes the eyes of the night sky, linking distant groups with silent observation.
Longneck's height allows feeding from trees even in darkness, guided more by memory than by sight. Rex adapts hunting technique for night, relying less on speed and more on patience and sudden bursts of power.
Fireclaw's lighter frame allows swift movement even when the ground can barely be seen.
Ironback designs a safe sleeping posture that turns rest into a shield.
Three-Horn rests with awareness, allowing sleep and vigilance to coexist. Bladetail uses the landscape as part of the armor, turning simple rocks into a fortress wall. Skywing's mastery of air currents reduces energy use when long surveillance is needed.
Longneck recognizes distant vibrations that might signal either weather or company.
Rex evaluates every new sound as a potential risk or opportunity in the dark.
Fireclaw feels every change in the environment through both ground and sky. Ironback responds to distant noise without panic, prepared to react only if danger draws closer. Three-Horn and the others return to the rhythm of night, each dinosaur relying on unique strengths to survive until dawn.
Skywing watches for shifts in fog patterns, because hidden animals often disturb the surface before they appear.
Longneck moves calmly, trusting height and memory to navigate when visibility fades.
Rex uses smell more than vision now, reading the night like a story written in drifting air. Fireclaw uses elevation to turn fog from an obstacle into an advantage. Ironback remains unmoving, knowing that stillness is one of the strongest defenses in unclear night. Three-Horn keeps watch from high ground, where sight remains clearer and danger easier to sense.
Bladetail holds position until the fog thinned enough for safe movement.
Skywing reads fog currents the way fish read river currents.
Longneck recognizes harmless browsers and relaxes its posture.
Rex prepares for a strike, but waits for absolute certainty before wasting energy. Fireclaw hunts by reading disturbance patterns rather than shapes. Ironback answers potential threats with quiet preparation rather than panic.
Three-Horn evaluates whether the movement signals danger or only wandering nocturnal grazers. Bladetail resumes travel once visibility supports safe progress.
Narrator says Skywing senses morning coming long before any dinosaur on the ground. Longneck greets sunrise with steady confidence, knowing daylight shifts the balance of power across the land. Rex adapts immediately to the changing visibility, transitioning from night stealth to daytime dominance.
Fireclaw's agility becomes even more lethal when daylight returns.
Ironback thrives in daylight when visibility favors defense. Three-Horn begins the day, ready to defend territory and herd alike.
Bladetail prefers daytime for long-distance travel across open land.
Bladetail remains alert even during simple morning rituals.
Skywing maps the land from above with unmatched precision.
Longneck chooses feeding spots based on vegetation maturity.
Rex evaluates both opportunity and risk before every hunt.
Fireclaw tracks every motion around Rex for advantages.
Ironback knows calm strength, asserts dominance without movement.
Three-Horn evaluates the gathering dinosaurs to maintain balance.
Bladetail stays prepared for sudden turns in herd behavior.
Skywing's dives often warn other dinosaurs of nearby movement.
Longneck senses Skywing's urgency and adjusts posture accordingly.
Rex detects incoming movement far sooner than sight confirms.
Fireclaw thrives when signals shift toward action.
Ironback reads environmental change through vibrations more than sound. Bladetail braces instinctively before confirming threat direction.
Narrator says Skywing identifies large-scale movement approaching the waterhole.
Longneck prepares to defend rather than flee.
Rex evaluates whether this movement offers prey or danger.
Fireclaw prepares for sudden pursuit.
Ironback is unshaken, even as threat lines sharpen. The ground now shakes under a migrating herd of swiftback duckbills.
Bladetail uses careful movement to redirect chaos instead of fighting it.
Three-Horn transforms raw mass into a shield for the entire valley.
Longneck shapes the river of running bodies instead of resisting the flow.
Rex recognizes that one misstep in this storm of hooves could crush a hunter. Fireclaw sees patterns inside chaos that other hunters miss. Skywing understands the shape of the migration before feet ever touch water.
Ironback turns brute strength into quiet infrastructure for the herd.
Bladetail protects without striking a single blow.
Three-Horn stands as the last wall between order and renewed panic.
Longneck's size offers shelter even to species from distant valleys.
Rex understands that a satiated predator can still choose restraint.
Fireclaw proves that even sharpest hunters sometimes select smaller meals. Skywing now shifts from scout to guardian of the twilight sky. Ironback becomes a living wall against whatever night might deliver. Bladetail chooses vigilance over sleep as shadows lengthen. Threehorn lends strength to strangers during the fragile hours before full dark. Longneck marks the transition into night with a single unhurried breath. Rex chooses to guard this night instead of hunting through it.
Fireclaw's keen senses now expand the watch beyond the valley floor.
Skywing reads the night sky's traffic as clearly as other dinosaurs read footprints. Ironback anchors the entire camp with the promise of unshakable presence. Bladetail's repeated path carves an invisible boundary around the sleeping herd.
Threehorn's rest never fully abandons responsibility.
Longneck takes advantage of quiet hours to feed where footsteps would crowd daylight.
Rex quenches thirst without surrendering awareness.
Fireclaw thrives on tiny victories that leave the valley peaceful.
Skywing patrols the darkness as tirelessly as any hunter stalks daylight. Ironback's subtle movements send messages that the herd has learned to trust. Bladetail distinguishes between harmless spectacle and genuine danger.
Threehorn knows comfort can travel on a single breath.
Longneck steps through mist like a moving piece of ancient weather.
Rex trusts elevated vantage points more than noisy crowds.
Fireclaw grants the night a rare moment without alert claws.
Skywing paints invisible lines across the night that only mist remembers.
Ironback's stillness allows even the smallest sound to stand out.
Bladetail wears the night's moisture like new armor. Threehorn feels the changing light before the sun clears any ridge.
Longneck's morning voice announces a new chapter for the valley.
Rex accepts that this morning belongs to recovery, not pursuit.
Fireclaw uses sunrise as both signal and celebration.
Skywing witnesses the valley's awakening from the best seat in prehistory.
Ironback's shadow has carried safety across the hours when teeth hunt easiest. Bladetail's duty eases as daylight takes back the valley.
Threehorn recognizes that survival today belonged to cooperation, not competition.
Longneck understands that this shared valley writes a story bigger than any single dinosaur.
Rex chooses, for one rare morning, to stand inside the herd instead of outside it.
Narrator says Fireclaw sings softly to a day preserved by restraint.
Skywing leaves the valley knowing that today, every heartbeat survived the night together.